Okay, we are looking at hip and knee kinematics during a walking gait. So I'm going to let the video run through in normal time, and then I'm going to slow it down and mark off the angles of the hip and knee at the 3 stages of gait. Okay, so at heel strike on the right side, which is right there, and then on the left side, which is right there for the knee. It should be at just about 0 to 5 degrees, and if my calculation is correct here, we have roughly full extension on the left side at heel strike. On the right side, just a little bit more flexion, but not too much, so just about 4 degrees of flexion. And we'll take a look at the hip. Okay, so it should be roughly 30 degrees of flexion. We've got 18 degrees on the left, and then on the right, about 20 degrees. So a little bit short of the textbook hip flexion at heel strike. Hit mid stance, which is where the foot is right underneath the hip. The hip, in theory, in the sagittal plane should be at 0 degrees, which it looks like it is on both sides, maybe just a slight bit of flexion on the right side. And then the knee should be roughly 18 degrees, and as we can see here on the left, it still is quite a bit extended, so it's at roughly 11 degrees. And then on the right, if my calculation is correct, it's about 15 degrees, so a little bit closer towards normal on the right side. In the frontal plane, the hip should be adducted roughly 4 degrees. We'll look at that after. At toe off, okay, on the left side, the knee should be roughly 40 degrees of flexion, and my colleague has quite a bit more than that. So she's roughly 55 degrees on the left, and then on the right, is about 54 degrees, so about the same. The hip should be in about 10 degrees of extension, which is very evident that it's not. It almost stays in neutral. So we would expect a little bit more extension than that. This is the face-on view of walking gait. So looking at right hip angles in the frontal plane on the right side, we're expecting about 4 degrees of hip adduction, and it looks like there's quite a bit more on the right hip. It's about 15 to 17 degrees. On the left side, we have about 7 degrees, so that's closer to normal. So just to recap, we have more hip adduction in the frontal plane on the right side.